his home country, arranged marriages were the norm. But after living in America, he was having second thoughts about adhering to this ancient custom, especially since he never met his wife-to-be. Still, when she flew into the airport, he dutifully waited for her, flowers in hand, and a gloomy expression on his face. But when she stepped through the terminal, everything changed. You know why? She was beautiful. Suddenly his glum demeanor disappeared. The thought of marrying this woman didn't seem to be a dread anymore. It seemed to please him. What changed? He saw her. Often we serve God out of obligation. We drag ourselves to do what we're supposed to do. We force ourselves to serve others, but our hearts aren't in it. We're like the guy at the airport, grudgingly holding flowers for God. We're trying to live holy lives because we know we should, but it's burdensome, it's joyless. What can change this? Seeing God. Have you saw God? If you saw His grace, if you saw Him, when we get a vision of who God is, suddenly we're energized to do His mission. How do we face turbulent waters? We got to find grace. If we don't find grace, life is a drudge. We're just drudging every day. We're going through it. We're getting up. So one guy says we get up, look at the same old face in the mirror, get in that same old car, go to that same old job, come back to the same old house, see the same old spouse, get in that same old bed and do the same thing all over again. Got the same old disease. Grace changes everything. Facing turbulent times. How do we face turbulent times? We need to have this love for God. When we find grace, then we have love for God. Why do I say that Noah loved God? He did it without whining, it seems. I don't hear that anywhere. It says he was a righteous man. Back in the passage it says that he was a righteous man and he was respected from the other people around him. Socially, he was the most righteous on the face of the earth. He was morally he was following God. Socially, publicly, and it says that Noah walked with God. It starts with grace. It starts with God's grace, and then out of that we have this love. He was willing to put his whole life aside, whatever he was doing at that point. I don't know what he was doing. He ditched it to the side. I don't know exactly how do you make an ark?
You have to have wood.
Yeah, but how do you do? I mean, God gave him enough time, I guess. I mean, there's not a question God gave him enough time, but he still has to eat. Still has to make a living. What did he do after he got done with his job? It's time to work on the ark. I mean, what's he gonna? Then he gets up. I mean, what's he doing? I don't know why he's doing this. He had grace for it.
Yeah.
He loved God. It wasn't a burden for him. He did what God asked him to do. He didn't fit in. He didn't fit into that society. No one was like him, hardly. Other than his family. Noah did all that God commanded him, it says. Noah did all that God commanded him. How do you get through tough times? How do you get through the tough times of your life? You need grace. You need a love for God. You think Paul enjoyed being a tent That's what he was. He was a tent maker. I mean, he didn't get some salary from somewhere. He had a tent making business. You think he enjoyed it? I don't think it mattered. The real job is to serve God. Your real job is to serve God, is to love God, is to follow God.
Amen.
That's your real job. I don't know, you could almost like anything if you have a good attitude. If you've got a bad attitude, you probably like nothing. And how you face turbulent times, you just need to follow God. No one did all that God commanded. No one was a preacher of righteousness. A true relationship with God is not mentally accepting a set of beliefs about God and his views about life. Following God is a life of action. Following God is a life of action. Do you know what God is asking you to do? And are you doing it? Someday, as the passage says here, we are God's masterpiece, created in the Messiah Jesus to perform good actions that God prepared for us long ago to be our way of life. He's got things for you to do. Being a Christian isn't mentally assenting to a certain amount of truths. That's not what becoming a follower of Jesus is. It's doing what he's asking you to do. It's following it. It's your actions. Faith without works is dead. Don't merely hear the word, do what it says. Someday, that's what we're going to answer to. Did we do what he asked us to do? And I think sometimes we think about, I'm waiting for God to ask me to make an ark. You know why he was chosen? Why was Noah chosen to do the ark? Because he was living for God in the present. He was ready. Sometimes it's sort of like the one guy told me some years ago. Brother Ron, when I hit the lottery and I get $1 million, I'll tithe.
Wow.
Start tithing now. Start serving God now.
Yeah.
When this happens, when this happens, when this happens, then. You think we'll serve God? How is this other opportunity, whatever happens to us in life, then we'll serve God?
Probably not.
I've heard it said, because some people, Vinny and I went to a wedding yesterday. I don't really know this couple. They're teachers at Central Benita. How many think that your behavior before marriage is going to absolutely change after you get married? You think that works that way? The behavior that you have before marriage is the same behaviors that you're going to have after. And you might say, well, how come God doesn't give me a lot of opportunities? How come God don't speak to me? You start serving God now. That will come. You start doing all that you know you should be doing now. Noah was ready. He was ready. So how do you face turbulent times? Be willing and available. Noah did all that God commanded him. Noah shifted his plans and followed God. Noah's ready to do whatever God asked him to do. But I don't know if we're going to have a whole lot of results sometimes. What I mean by results is that he preached, and he had 150 years to preach while he was making that. Not a soul came to Jesus. But I've thought about it. Maybe when God talked to him, maybe his kids weren't even following God at that point. Maybe when God talked to him,
150 years to get the point across.
he had a little time there to do it, but it says that he lived an exemplary life. He lived an exemplary life. He lived a good example. Each of us have our own difficulties. It starts with grace. Or else it's just like you're just trying and trying and trying and you can't get anywhere. You need grace. You need God's love to pour down on you. And you need to see God. And then when you start seeing God, it's not about your life anymore. It's about what does God want me to do? And then you'll just say, Lord, I just love you and I want to serve you and I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. That's a great life. Lord, I just want to thank you for Noah, for his obedience. That in the midst of a corrupt world, people that weren't following you, he was faithful. Lord, I ask that in spite of the people around us, in spite of maybe what they do, and Lord, because of the people around us, help us to serve you. Because they need to see your light in your life. And Lord, I ask you to open our eyes to see you. That we would see who you are. That we would see how beautiful you are, and how great a God you are. And that we would fall in love with you. And that, Father, you would open our ears to hear your voice. Noah heard you clearly, and we would have the guts to follow you, even though it sounds stupid. Thank you, Father. In your word, you said that Noah is similar to baptism, that the old has gone and the new has come. And Father, I pray that you would wipe away the old stuff in our lives, that we would live for you. Give us that love, that first love for you. Excite us.